Okay, have you ever stopped to wonder what actually holds a country together? I mean, beyond just a flag or lines on a map, what are the real rules of the game? Well, today we're going to decode the blueprint for one of the most fascinating democracies on the planet, the Swiss Constitution. And you'll see, it's so much more than just some old legal document. It's a living, breathing set of instructions that shapes pretty much every part of Swiss life.
I mean, seriously, think about that question. How would you even start to build a country from scratch? You'd need a plan, right? A blueprint, not for a skyscraper, but for an entire society. A plan that spells out who has power, how to protect people, and sets the basic rules for how everyone's going to get along. Well, that blueprint is a constitution. And let me tell you, Switzerland's is a real masterclass in design.
So here's our game plan for this journey. First, we're going to look at the core blueprint, the absolute foundation of the Swiss state. Then we'll dive into how power is so cleverly spread out to the local regions, the cantons. After that, we'll get into the good stuff, the catalog of freedoms that protect you as an individual, and then the social promises the state makes to its citizens. And we'll wrap it all up with the really ingenious legal trick that balances everyone's rights with the needs of society.
All right, so every good story needs a beginning. And for Switzerland, the beginning is its own rule book. What exactly is Switzerland according to the Constitution? Let's take a look at the very first articles that lay out the identity and the mission for the entire nation.
It all kicks off with this incredibly simple statement in Article 1. But don't let that simplicity fool you for a second. This one idea is actually pretty radical. Power in Switzerland starts at the bottom. The default setting is that the local regions, the cantons, are in charge. The national government only gets to do things if the Constitution specifically hands it that power. This is the bedrock, the absolute foundation of Swiss federalism.
Now, if Article 1 is the foundation, Article 2 is the nation's mission statement. And it's a really powerful list of goals, right? Protect liberty, promote welfare, ensure sustainability, preserve diversity. This isn't just some nice-sounding poetry, it's a very practical checklist. Every single new law, every government policy, it all has to be measured against these core purposes. It's like the North Star for the entire government.
Okay, so if power really does start at the local level, how does that actually work in practice? This is where we get to the pillars of Swiss federalism, the real mechanics of how power is shared in a way that makes the Swiss system unlike almost any other in the world.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The Swiss cantons, they aren't just provinces or administrative districts, they're basically many states. Article 3 confirms it. They have their own constitutions, their own governments, their own courts. Just think about that for a second. Power doesn't flow down from a central capital. It flows up from the regions, and only when the Constitution says it should. This whole local-first philosophy actually has a name. It's called subsidiarity, and Article 5A makes it a constitutional rule. Basically, the central government should only step in to do things that the cantons can't manage well enough on their own. For example, a single canton can't run a national army, right? So the federal government does it. But a canton can absolutely run its own schools, so it does. This one simple principle is at the heart of so many political debates in Switzerland. And this chart gives you a fantastic snapshot of that division of labor. You can see the pattern, can't you? The federal government, the Confederation, handles the big picture stuff that affects the entire country, things like foreign policy and national defense. But the stuff that really impacts your day-to-day life, your kid's school, the local hospital, that's all managed at the cantonal level. It's a system that's literally designed to keep power as close to the people as possible.
So, we've seen the architecture of the state, this incredible federal structure, but what about the people living inside it? Well, the Constitution also builds this powerful protective shield around every single individual. So let's open up this catalog of freedoms that guarantees your fundamental rights.
This is essentially the Swiss Bill of Rights. And it all starts with the most foundational idea of all, human dignity. From there, everything else flows. The right to be treated equally, the freedom to speak your mind, to gather with other people, and of course, the right to have your privacy respected. And let's be clear, these are not gifts that the government kindly bestows upon you. They're your inherent rights that put a limit on the government's power over you.
And believe me, these aren't just dusty old principles from another century. Take the right to privacy, for example. The Constitution uses that very right as the direct legal basis for all of our modern data protection laws. It's literally what limits government surveillance of your emails, your messages, your digital life. It is a perfect example of how a timeless principle protects us right here, right now, in the 21st century.
But a great constitution isn't just about what the state can't do to you. It's also about what the state must do for you. And this is what we call the social contract.
that set of guarantees that ensures a basic level of well-being for absolutely everyone in society.
So here they are, the pillars of the Swiss social safety net. The Constitution literally mandates that the state has to work towards providing things like healthcare, education, and social security. It's a constitutional promise that, as a society, we have a responsibility to care for one another, and that the government has to act fairly and transparently when it deals with you. It's a really powerful statement about the kind of society Switzerland wants to be. But, and this is a really key distinction, these social goals aren't a blank check. You can't just walk into court and sue the government for a brand new house. Instead, these are what lawyers call programmatic rights. Think of them as constitutional instructions to the government. They're telling politicians, hey, you need to create laws and programs that get these things done. They are the anchors for policy, the official to-do list for the state.
Okay, so we have a powerful state on one hand, and we have powerful individual rights on the other. How on earth do you make sure those two things don't just crash right into each other? Well, that brings us to our final section, the Great Balancing Act. This is the keystone that holds the entire constitutional arch together.
This is probably one of the most important questions in any democracy. Freedom is absolutely essential, but is it absolute? Can your freedom of speech ever be limited? What about your right to privacy? The Swiss Constitution, thankfully, provides a very clear, very specific answer.
And that answer is the elegant three-part Article 3 test. Any limit on your freedom has to clear 3 hurdles. First, it has to be based on an actual law, no making things up. Second, it has to serve a genuine public interest, like public safety. And third, and this one is so crucial, it has to be proportional. That means the government can't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. The restriction has to actually fit the problem it's trying to solve.
This test is basically the engine room of Swiss constitutional law. It's what judges use every single day. It's how they balance your right to privacy against the police's need to investigate a crime. It's how they weighed freedom of assembly against public health during the pandemic. Article 36 is the ultimate safeguard, making sure that when rights are limited, it's done fairly, legally, and with a whole lot of restraint.
And there is one final, uniquely Swiss twist to all of this. This entire blueprint we've been talking about, it isn't just in the hands of politicians and judges. Through what are called popular initiatives, the Swiss people themselves can propose changes to the Constitution. This leads to some really fascinating outcomes, like the 2009 vote to ban the construction of new minarets, which directly changed constitutional guarantees. It's just a powerful example of how this document is so responsive to what the people want.
So all of this leaves us with a really fascinating question, doesn't it? Is the Swiss Constitution a fixed blueprint, a foundation set in stone? Or is it more like a building that's constantly being renovated and redesigned by the very people who live inside it? The remarkable truth is that it's both. And that unique blend of rock-solid stability and direct popular control is what makes it one of the most compelling pieces of social architecture in the entire world. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.